It's time for Shands UF to stop putting profits ahead of patients.
Stop playing political games.
Visit SaveOurTraumaCenters.org to find out how you can help keep Ocala's Trauma Center open and protect life-saving trauma care. Save more lives. Save our trauma centers. Paid for by the 60 Plus Association.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala!
All right, 19 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. You know, whenever you hear about prisoners of war and you think about the past, how long the war, like World War II was, what do we say, 4 years long? And then the prisoners of war were usually released like right afterwards. This Iraq-Afghanistan thing is going on so long. It's become such a mystery as to actually what's going on sometimes when you hear about it. Dr. Robert H. Wagstaff is on the phone. He's a litigation and constitutional attorney in Anchorage, Alaska. Successfully argued 2 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. He's a member of the National Board of Directors for the ACLU in New York, formerly the Alaska Bar Association president, and an Alaska Judicial Council member, as well as a best-selling author. So, wow, what a load of credentials. His book is called Terror Detentions and the Rule of Law, and my notes say that he recently returned from a 10-year stint at Oxford where he became an expert in the laws impacting prisoners at Guantanamo Bay and their potential prosecution and or release. And let's talk to him about this and about the book and just say good morning, Dr. Wagstaff. Thank you for being on with us today. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for inviting me.
And thank you for being patient with us as we got through whatever we just went through. Anyway, this is a fascinating topic. And if we compare what's happening now with prisoners of war to like World War II, is there an explanation as to why things are going on so long, why prisoners of war are held for so long?
Well, the explanation is, in a simple one word, is politics, U.S. politics. That seems to be governing what happens to the Guantanamo detainees more than the law. Politics is having its way with them. And as you correctly say, that the international law is that when you hold a prisoner of war as a prisoner, when the hostilities stop, when the war is ended, the prisoners are repatriated unless they've committed some crime, in which case they should be prosecuted. And the problem with Guantanamo is that when it was initially set up, the Bush administration said that the detainees were not prisoners of war, and that they were unlawful combatants, a term that sort of was invented for the moment, and that the Geneva Conventions, which are basic international law involving conflicts, didn't apply, and that the prisoners didn't have any access to the U.S. courts either. So the whole idea of it by the Bush administration was that Guantanamo was a lawless world, a place where no law applied. And that's changed when President Obama came onto the scene, that he recognized that they were in fact prisoners of war, as did the Supreme Court. And they rejected the Bush view that these are not POWs. And they're presently being held by the Obama administration as prisoners of war, and as such, they will be repatriated. It has to be repatriated after the war ends, and it is ending. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were governed by an authorization for use of military force issued by the Congress shortly after 9/11, and it dealt with persons and entities that were involved in the 9/11 attacks. It's not just a free-ranging authorization to fight terror wherever it exists. It was very specific and is limited to 9/11 terrorists.
Yeah, so let me ask a question. Based on the definition of what makes a prisoner of war as opposed to an illegal combatant, it sounds like the country itself has to have had a war declared against it or declared by it. That seems to me that we would have a different label or at least before Obama was elected, we would have a different label for those prisoners from Iraq than those from Afghanistan.
Well, logically, that's true, but that's not the way it sort of came down.
Didn't work out that way.
Didn't work out that way, and the most important thing is that the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, has recognized that the authorization for use of military force after 9/11 is, in fact, a declaration of war, has a status of a declaration of war, and they've said that that's what it is, so that's what we're stuck with.
So, I've often thought that when a country does not want to get itself into hot water by declaring a war, it'll start these terrorist groups, and that's how they fight a war without actually being at war. And they no, it's not us; it's these terrorist groups that live in our borders. And is there anything to that? And if so, are we doing something about that? And one of the things we heard from Guantanamo Bay from the prison was that we were trying to get information from them so that we had a better handle on what we were fighting.
Well, that's what we were told. Guantanamo is a real black mark that the U.S. has, and has really soiled and sullied the U.S. reputation internationally, because the prisoners in Guantanamo have been abused. I mean, physically abused. They've been tortured. That's conceded by the Bush government. That, in fact, it was authorized at the highest levels, and the president knew about it. Donald Rumsfeld knew about it, and authorized it. And it's what a horrible thing to have happen. Is that the U.S. is now seen internationally as a country that tortures people. Which is a horrible thing, and it's a real black mark the U.S. has. And the people that are involved in it have not been. There's been no investigation. There's been no prosecution. The U.S. is a signator to the Convention Against Torture. That is an international treaty that the President Reagan signed, and it was ratified by a 2/3 vote of the Senate. And that requires not only that these signatories not to torture people, but also if there's any evidence of torture, that they investigate it, that they expose it, they tell the public what happened, they prosecute those who are responsible. Now, that's all part of an international treaty, and according to our Constitution, international treaties like that are the supreme law of the land. That's actually what the Constitution says. But it's been ignored, and it's being ignored now. And it's unfortunate that there is not a general investigation and exposition about what actually happened, because it's a very shameful moment in U.S. history.
How many prisoners are still there?
There are about 158. I think that's the exact count.
And is there any number that we would know, or do we not know this information about which ones are truly should be considered prisoners of war, as opposed to those who may have actually committed a crime and need to have different handling?
Not really. There isn't. There has been a categorization of the remaining prisoners by the Obama administration, and there are 48 that have been designated as too dangerous to release, but there's no evidence or insufficient evidence or evidence that was obtained by torture that they cannot be prosecuted, and that's the problem. As I understand it, or as President Obama has stated, that they aren't going to be released, but they aren't going to be charged with anything either. And the law really doesn't provide for holding people indefinitely without charge.
The first answer you gave me was that the reason for all of it was one word: politics. And
that's true.
Yeah. Okay. So if the politics can be traced to an administration, and the politics of President Obama are different than the politics of Bush, then why is everything still the same?
Well, because President Obama made a mistake, a tactical mistake. He announced he was going to close Guantanamo. I mean, he campaigned on that, and so that didn't come as any surprise. But then he announced that he was going to transfer prisoners to New York for trial, and to another facility that he was working on to be converted into a place to hold the prisoners pending disposition, release, or trial. Now, he told that in advance before it happened, and all that did was give his opponents, which the Republican Party is sworn to, this is when they were going to do all they could to avoid or to keep Obama from a second term. He didn't know they'd made that pledge on his inaugural night or had that meeting and decided that's what they're going to do. But they did it. They blocked and sabotaged his attempts to move prisoners to the U.S. for trial. And they now have in place, they being the Republican Party in Congress, has said that he cannot use any, the Obama administration can't use any funds for transfer or for trying cases in the U.S. And that's why it stopped. And he should have just done it like Bush did, just transfer him to New York and have it a done deal, a fait accompli, and then nothing can be done about it. When Obama... Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Doctor. Dr. Robert Wagstaff is our guest. His book is called Terror, Detentions, and the Rule of Law. I know I've got some callers wanting to talk to you, but I wanted to squeeze in one more, if you don't mind, before we go to the phone. The question I have for you, since you've got a track record of being able to persuade the Supreme Court to think maybe differently, are you involved directly with this, or is your involvement through the book mostly?
It's my involvement as a lawyer and academic. I don't represent any of the detainees, nor have I been involved in any of that litigation. I've been sort of an observer and writing about it, and that's what I did for the 10 years that I was at Oxford, because all this was happening as I was there, and it really caught my attention.
Okay. And are you okay with taking phone calls from listeners?
Sure.
Okay, let me open up the phone line then and take a couple of these calls. If you'd like to speak to Dr. Wagstaff, we've got about 7 minutes to do this. Please make your questions relatively brief. Don't have to be real brief. The phone number is 622-WOCA. That is the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline. And good morning. You're first. You're on with Dr. Wagstaff.
Good morning, Doctor. I'd like to know what tortures were performed on the people that are being held in Guantanamo, other than the usual asking of questions and being a little callous about doing it. If that's considered torture, what would you call what happened to the reporter, Mr. Pearl? And what would you say about the people who've had their fingernails pulled out and other incidents that happened other than in the United States? And also, President Obama had the opportunity to do a lot of things that he said he was going to do, and immediately reverse course on all the campaign rhetoric that he spouted out there. I mean, isn't he his own man? Isn't he the president?
Okay.
You can't keep blaming everything on the previous president, who I have no love for either. I'll hang up and listen to your comment, but I think you're very one-sided.
All right. He thinks you're one-sided, and what? Yeah. Besides, I don't know. What were the tortures?
The tortures were very systematic. There was a whole protocol for what they could do that was created by the Department of Defense, approved by Donald Rumsfeld, and executed. It involved what was called wall slamming, which is kind of self-explanatory. Slamming the prisoner against the wall repeatedly, face slapping, then tying them or shackling them in very uncomfortable positions for hours and hours, temperature extremes of hot and cold for prolonged periods of time, I mean for days, and then waterboarding, which is not simulated drowning, it is actual drowning, and that is considered definitely torture. The United States prosecuted Japanese military people after World War II who did very similar things with water. It's a very popular method of torture, apparently. And those are the kinds of things that happened, locking into like coffin-like structures and keeping people in there for hours in the dark without them knowing what's going to happen. There were some simulated executions, just a bunch of all sorts of things were done.
All right,
and it's all documented. It's the Senate Committee on on Military Affairs and then the Senate Committee on Intelligence all have lengthy reports, and it's admitted. I mean, George Bush in his book Decision Points that he wrote admits that he authorized these abusive techniques, which are torture.
And I'm going to guess, Doctor, that those who disagree with you, as well as those who agree with you, will get more information in the book than we'll ever be able to get on this little interview. So
that's for sure.
Just for the listeners, the book is called Terror, Detentions, and the Rule of Law. Let me squeeze in one more phone call before we run out of time. Good morning. You're on the air with Dr. Wagstaff.
Doctor, I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and I'd like to thank you for your subject you're discussing today and your work and your education as an American citizen. I also had orders at Guantanamo Bay, and as a combat engineer to do minefield maintenance, which is why I got out of the Marine Corps prior to Desert Storm. But my question to the doctor is if he could comment on the majority of the cases, Larry, getting back to your question of the 148 or whatever the number is, inmates, how many are actually prosecutable? And isn't it true, Doctor, that a large majority of the people actually their cases are almost non-existent because there really isn't much evidence on the majority of them? And what we say, Larry, to you, who gets captured on the battlefield are the slowest. And so it's not that there aren't dangerous people in there, and I would also close with this from a political standpoint. There was compensation provided to the North Vietnamese for the POWs at the end of the Vietnam War, and if the doctor could address compensation for those two aspects, and I'll hang up. And thanks again, Doctor.
Oh, well, you're certainly welcome. Thank you for your comments. The compensation issue. Some of the detainees, former detainees, have sued the U.S. government seeking compensation for their really what amounts to false arrests and assaults against them. And the courts in the U.S. have not allowed those cases to go forward because the government has said this involves state secrets, and we can't bring this out in public, and therefore the cases should not be allowed to go forward. It sounds like a pretty far-fetched theory, but there's authority for it, and that's what's happened. The state secrets doctrine is currently recognized in the U.S. Unlike in the UK, which the book compares the two, where there has been compensation paid to the very same individuals because the UK was involved in some of these, what amounts to torture and abuse of detainees. So they recognize that there should be compensation. The Convention Against Torture, one of its provisos is that people who have been tortured should be compensated by the people who committed the torture, which is sort of basic law. That's not allowed in the U.S. so far.
Doctor, thank you for being on the air with us today. The book is called Terror, Detentions, and the Rule of Law. It is written by our guest, Dr. Robert H. Wagstaff. And before we wrap it up, do you have a website you can leave our listeners with? And is the book available everywhere books are sold?
Yes, the book's available from Amazon, online, Barnes & Noble. It's an Oxford University Press book is the publisher, and they have a website too, Oxford OUP USA, and that's where the book can be obtained. It's readily available.
Okay,
and it covers in much greater detail what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, and that is one of the. Hopefully everybody understands that about radio interviews, is that they're brief. We try to get enough out there so that we're fair to the topic and fair to the book and fair to both sides when there are both sides, as there are today. Dr. Wagstaff, thank you for being on the air with us, and thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to help.
Thank you. We will take a little break and be right back.
You're listening to WOCA News Talk 1370, Ocala's source for what's happening in today's hottest, up-to-date news and topics.
This is a public notice. Local residents can now save thousands of dollars on their next car, truck, or SUV. It's not a tent sale, because no tent is big enough to hold this many cars. It's OcalaForSale.com. Say goodbye to sticker shock. OcalaForSale.com has thousands of vehicles with no stickers at all. But hurry, don't walk, don't run. Just sit down and log on to OcalaForSale.com. Prices and inventory change daily. Offer does not include dealer upcharge, undercutting, rust proofing, factory surcharge, or delivery fee. See website for details.
Hi, I'm Yvette, and I'm here to tell you a few things about ABC Fredericks Appliance. They sell not only new, but used guaranteed appliances. When you call ABC Fredericks Appliance, they will provide service on what they sell and any appliances that you own. ABC Fredericks Appliance is located in Bellevue, right over the railroad tracks. Call 352-629-5181. That's 352-629-5181. That's 352-629-5181. ABC Fredericks Appliance.
News Talk 1370, WOCA invites you to discover your full business potential. News Talk Radio is the perfect environment for your advertising. WOCA's News Talk format pinpoints information-hungry, better educated, high-income adults. So use us to talk to them. Call 732-8000. 732-8000. We're Ocala News Talk Radio. News Talk 1370, WOCA.
Hey, I'm Gary. And I'm Eric. Did you know that Red Eye Radio is on WOCA The Source every night from 2 to 6 a.m. and it's live?
That's right. No tape shows here.
We know that the news doesn't sleep.
And neither do we. So we're here with you live from 2 till 6 a.m. every weekday. Call us 866-90-RED-EYE. So join me, Gary McNamara.
And me, Eric Harley, every weeknight to discuss the latest in news and entertainment.
Right here on WOCA The Source.
Hey, Matt, I know Sunrise Automotive does auto stuff, but I need some tires for my truck. Can you recommend someone?
Yes, I can. We do that.
No, I mean, I need them installed and balanced and all that.
Yep, we do that.
Well, my son needed his windows tinted.
Yep, we do that.
I need my seat replaced.
Yep, we do that too.
I need a new roof line, and a new spoiler, and a new trunk.
We can even do that too.
Okay, I get it. I suppose you can also do a radio show too, huh?
Well, as a matter of fact, join me every Monday at 10 for auto repair with personal care here on The Source.
Of course you do.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Life jackets save lives. Wear it, Florida. Becoming milder today with more clouds and sun with highs in the 60s. It'll be partly cloudy tonight with lows ranging from 54 and then to 64 on the coast. Tomorrow, intervals of clouds and sun with a couple of showers. Our high 71 to 75. Then for Friday, partly sunny and warm with a chance of a shower, high 78 to 82. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Hi, this is Joe from Damage Control Services. Join me Tuesdays at 10:30 when we discuss what to do when your property gets damaged, how to fix it fast, and get back on track. At Damage Control, we specialize in helping home and business owners recover from damage caused by floods, fires, storms, tree damage, mold, and all other insurance-related disasters. So when disaster strikes, big or small, call Damage Control Services. Call me 352-817-6574.
Hi, I'm Tom Ingram, CEO of Gateway Bank, inviting you to drop by our main office on Silver Springs Boulevard every Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. for the Community Gazette, a 3-hour show focusing on our favorite community to live and work, Ocala, Marion County. Come join us with the voice of Ocala, Buddy Martin, in the new old-fashioned bank radio studio as we discuss a variety of interesting topics on the Community Gazette.